straf. Dennis Bergkamp. Persie, ja! Daar is hij, ja! Daar is Klaassen, goal!
Hi everybody, it's time for podcast 74 from Football-Oranje. I'm Michael Statham, and as usual, I'm with Mike Bell, the website editor. We're going to be talking about the new season. There's plenty to talk about, thanks to your questions that you sent in on Twitter, about the Netherlands and the Eredivisie, some young players at the start of this new season, Wesley Sneijder and Arjen Robben's potential returns to the Eredivisie as well. Before I do begin, just something very quick. We often get asked about how we can be supported. We don't have a Patreon page or anything like that, but should you wish to donate money to us, it does help us grow as a website and what we can do. And the way to do that is by purchasing one of our Euro 2020 wristbands. Now, it has been pushed back a summer, the competition, but the wristbands are still valid. The competition will be called Euro 2020. In addition to that, if you don't wish to purchase a wristband, but you do wish to support what we do, you can, of course, leave a note on a purchase, which I will leave in the comments and a description of wherever you're listening, whether that's YouTube, SoundCloud or iTunes, as to how you can do that. But yeah, thank you anyway for your support that you give us in general with your comments and your questions that you send in. It means a lot to us. Anywho, time for the podcast. Mike, it's great to talk to you again about the new season. We've had a break for about 5 weeks, I think, between our last podcast, but it feels like we've moved from the end of the last season to the beginning of this new one. And in the meantime, the Eredivisie have announced that the season will begin on the 12th of September, which is after the Netherlands international break, which includes the Nations League fixtures. And there will be plenty of fixtures throughout August as the Eredivisie clubs will prepare for the new season. It looks like all of the fixtures are domestic pretty much between Dutch and sort of Belgian teams. For example, there's one feature one which is between Ajax and Utrecht, which could be a good watch. But that's next month. One of the big things that happened in the news between now and then was Arjen Robben's return to Dutch football. He re-signs for his first club, FC Groningen. What do you make of that transfer, Mike? And I guess it's good to get our opinions, because people might be interested to know, actually, how much can he succeed? He had a whole year out of football since he retired with Bayern Munich. Is he going to be the same player that he once was?
I think it's really exciting for the Eredivisie. It's really exciting for the fans of the club, and I can't wait to see what he brings to Groningen next season. He's going from playing with world-class players to playing with some that are not so good, but I think he's going to be a superstar for that club. I think he's going to be named a captain. He's just going to bring the fans back. He's going to bring excitement to the club again. And for me, they weren't that far off European spots before the season was ended, and with Robben now, you can see them challenging for Europe, for at least a Europa League spot for the playoffs. Yeah, I think it's great for them. It seems like he's only going to be paid if he plays. I've seen him working on his fitness in recent weeks, and he says he's top fit. If he can play like he did in his last season at Bayern, then yeah, he's probably still one of the best players that will be playing in the Eredivisie next season. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gets on. And for me, the surprise is that Groningen have these players that still want to leave the club, like Zeefuik, and you're wondering why they would want to go now, because there's so much excitement around the club now, and it could be challenging, and it could be the chance to play with Arjen Robben should surely be inspiring these players to stay. But yeah, I think it's great for Groningen, and I'm excited to see what other players they can sign this season and see how they get on in pre-season.
We received lots of questions for this week's podcast, and a few were about Robben and Sneijder. One of them was from Lewis. He said, is Groningen versus Utrecht going to be the game to watch out for when the games don't include Ajax final, PSV and RZ? I guess from an interest factor of how Robben plays, and potentially Sneijder will come on to him in a minute, yeah, I can see why that might be a feature match. I disagree with your point there, Mike, about Groningen being able to push for top positions in the league, just because they don't have a lot of good players around that. And like you said, actually, a couple of players will be leaving this summer. Zeefuik is set on leaving. There's a couple of solid players in there, but Mike de Wierik was a captain and a good defender. He's leaving for Derby County. So I personally don't see him challenging for top 5, 6 in the league. They could surprise me though. They could still make a couple more signings around that. They've just got a lot of average midfielders and a lot of young players that are still to develop. In terms of how Robben might get on, I think that he'll be taking on some lesser defenders. Left backs are going to be fearing him so much. I think he'll have some of them on toast. He's going to lack some of the pace, but he's just got too much skill, I think, to beat some of these Eredivisie level defenders. I really wonder how he'll get on in those bigger matches, though. How he is going to get on against the top fullbacks in the league, what PSV and Feyenoord and all of those teams can put out. He's got a long way to go. It's like being out injured for an entire year. It can sometimes be hugely detrimental to the player. But Robben, from the pictures I was seeing on Groningen's YouTube channel, he looks fit and he looks ready to go. And I think he was getting some preparation done before the rest of the squad came back as well, which is another good sign. With Schneider though, Mike, he's obviously a legend for the Netherlands and around the same age as Robben. But I think that most Dutch football fans saw the pictures of him at the stadium. He was definitely enjoying retirement far too much and far more than Robben was. Surely you don't think that there's going to be a return for him too at Eredivisie level?
No, I can't see it happening. I think that we saw the pictures and he's just released his biography, and the person who wrote it was in the media a few weeks ago saying that he was worried about Schneider. He's a bit of a party animal. Will he be able to, seriously knuckle down? And does he have the enthusiasm to come out and get himself fit again? Unlike Robben, who's close to fitness, he's only been out for a year. Schneider's 2 years and he's put on a lot of weight. Schneider said he can get fully fit within 1-2 months, but I can't see it. He's going to train with an amateur club at the end of this month. If I was to make a prediction, I think he would train a few times with an amateur club, see that his level is far below what it needs to be, and then it'll become announced that he's not going to come back. I think it'll fall through before the start of the season. I think Utrecht fans would love to see him because he's a fan of the club and he's been around the stadium last season. He's got a box there and they'd like to see him. But if you were a Utrecht midfielder right now, like Ramselaar, Van der Streek, would Schneider be able to reach their level? Right now, I don't think so. He could probably receive the ball and spring some passes around, but I don't think he's going to do much running. And for me, it just seemed like a bit of a waste of time. Again, if he came in on a free and only asked to be paid for the games he played in, then fine. But it's going to take a lot of work to get him anywhere near fitness levels. And I think with Robben, he's probably raring to go, whereas Schneider, I could see him playing like maybe 1-2 matches off the bench for a cameo, spring a few passes out, not do much running, and then that would be it. And I don't really see the point of that. I think he should just stay retired and enjoy his retirement.
A few of you are asking that whether Schneider will return to football. I guess this situation reminds me of, I'm an Aston Villa fan, and it reminds me of Stilian Petrov. He was unfortunate enough to come down with leukemia and couldn't play football for a number of years, but was so determined to make a comeback in his 30s that he lost an awful lot of weight that was put on because of the illness he had. And he actually returned to amateur football, and he impressed so much at that level that he actually started training again with Aston Villa. And I just wonder whether Schneider has the same determination that Stilian Petrov had. I really doubt it. And Petrov in the end actually was denied a 1-year contract. He said he'd play for free. And again, I'm not sure that Schneider's in for it like that. So in terms of mentality, I don't know if he has got what it takes to lose the weight, get fit, and be, like you said, the likes of Van der Streek and Ramselaar, who are decent players. Utrecht aren't a lower Eredivisie team. They're also not as poor as Groningen, in my opinion. I think they're actually a very decent outfit. I don't see where Schneider fits in there, and I really don't see him coming back to any sort of professional club. It would be good to see him play at amateur level though, and I'm sure that the club at non-league level will get a lot of revenue from having him around. And there's a question from Abdul, just to finish our discussion about Robben and Schneider, who I think is getting optimistic, but given how determined he is to play professional football again, Abdul asks, can Robben play for Oranje again? What do you think about that, Mike, with the Euros and the Nations League coming up?
Well, strangely, Ronald Koeman was asked about it and he didn't rule it out. He just said we'll see how he performs and we'll take it from there. And if we have to have a conversation with him again, then he will. And for me, if Robben comes into Eredivisie next season, shows at a really high level, scores into double figures, impresses, and he becomes an option again, and I don't see why not. I think if he comes out of retirement and he still could be one of the best Dutch wingers around, would I rather have Arjen Robben in the squad or Ryan Babel? It's light and day. It's Arjen Robben every single time. So I think that's an option off the bench. If he comes in and keeps, say, Calvin Stengs or Boadu out of the squad and they're performing well, then I'd see it as a bit of a shame. But if Robben comes back, shows top form, then I don't see why not.
On the topic of the Netherlands then, and the Nations League in particular, there are some fixtures coming up in September, all being well, with the pandemic, of course, that we can return to football. And the Netherlands play Poland and Italy, both in Amsterdam, in September. What do you make of the Netherlands' chances in that, Mike? It was a question from one of our listeners who asked about what the chances are and can they win the group in the Nations League. As I said, Poland, Italy in the group, also Bosnia in there too.
Yeah, why not? It's an easier group than what we had last time with Germany and France. I think the Italy games will be tough, and Poland are a good side with Lewandowski, but everyone's going to that with no reason to not think that they can win that group. I think that Italy are a decent side, they've got some good young players, but so do the Netherlands, and I think that they can beat every single team in that group. I don't see why not. They can't win it.
Yeah, me too. I think actually this is a weaker group than the last one they had. They had France and Germany last time. And this time, yes, Italy are a good team. All three are good teams. But I think that the Netherlands, when they're playing well, can beat all three of those. Why not believe that they can do the same again? And it'd just be good to see them play again, I think, after so long. And, of course, without the Euros this summer, it will be a nice return to football, international football, when we see them play. Whilst we're still with the Netherlands, there's a good question that we had in from at @S_VDH about Atalanta. Atalanta are doing a great job, aren't they, in Serie A, Mike? They're like in the top four, really chasing Champions League football again, and they're not out of the Serie A title race yet. There's 3 Dutchmen that play for them. De Roon is a midfielder, who, of course, is quite heavily chosen by Ronald Koeman at the moment for the side. There are then 2 fullbacks as well who play wing-back for Atalanta. Robin Gosens, who is German and Dutch, and at the moment has said he won't rule out playing for Netherlands, but he was nearly capped by Germany before the pandemic began. And you've also got Hans Harteber, who's the right wing-back, who was at a time selected by Koeman, but then became out of favour. I'll give my view in a second, Mike, because I'm quite interested in hearing yours. The guy on Twitter was asking how many of those can be in the Netherlands squad next summer. Do you think that they deserve to be in the squad at the moment?
Well, I think that, De Roon is a permanent member of the squad now. I think he'll definitely be there. Gosens, he's got to pick Germany. I can't see anything other than that. He came out and said that he's hoping that Germany come back in from after this summer once the internationals come back. I think Jogi Löw will pick him. He's stayed in good form and he'll pick Germany over Netherlands, sadly. And I think that, again, it's a case of Netherlands moving a bit too slowly to cap him. His interest was there for a while. He just wasn't chosen. Hateboer, he's having a great season with Atalanta, but every single time I've seen him play for Netherlands, I've not been impressed. But the right back position is one of the weakest, and if he continues at a high level into next season, why not? I think that De Roon will definitely be there, but my only problem with De Roon is that he gets played in games that he's not useful enough. He's played in games where you only really need one defensive midfielder, and sometimes Koeman plays him and Frenkie de Jong. I don't think it's necessary when he could be playing Van de Beek. So I think De Roon will be there. Against the tougher games, I can see him starting alongside Frenkie de Jong, while against the lesser sides, which, no disrespect to Ukraine, Austria, and the third team that will be in Netherlands group, do you really need 2 defensive midfielders against them? Probably not, when you can have a Wijnaldum or a Van de Beek in there. I think De Roon will definitely be there next summer, and this depends on Hateboer and how he can continue to perform. I think he'll get another chance. He just needs to take it.
For me personally, I think that Hateboer will be given another chance. But yes, he did not impress me when he played for the Netherlands. I just can't believe that he's playing at the minute so well in Serie A. He's, of course, playing a different position as well. Hateboer and Goossens are both playing wing backs, and Koeman favours 4 at the back at the moment. He has had history, of course, of playing 5 at the back, but I think that's unlikely now because he likes to play more attacking and, like you say, play De Roon in the midfield position as defensive midfield. He doesn't often choose 4 at the back and then 3 more attacking-minded midfielders. But a really good point on the fact that De Roon plays in matches where he's not needed. And I think it would be great to see in future, like you said, Mike, perhaps Van der Beek and Wijnaldum playing a little bit deeper, and the introduction of Mohi Atara as the attacking midfielder in the 10. I think that could be something really exciting in future when they're trying to break down teams who are really defensive, particularly when they're playing at home. I wonder about Goossens though. I'm going to go on the opposite side of the fence, and I think that if Koeman gets in for him, he'll choose Aranya, and they definitely need another choice at left back. As I don't know if Blint can keep playing at left back. We have been up and down with Blint over the past 5 years. And more recently, of course, he has impressed and done really well, but he's also starting to age. And Goossens isn't young, but he's in his 20s, and why can't he be a good second choice for now, and then eventually settle in to become first choice left back?
Yeah, I can see it happening if Koeman tries to convince him and Jeremy don't come in for him. But I think that he has basically come out and said recently that he's waiting for that one from Germany. He doesn't rule out Netherlands if it doesn't come. So I think he is holding out for Germany, and I think if Germany decide in September, once the Nations League come in, that they'll give him a cap, he's got to choose them. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that he chooses the Netherlands, because I think he is another great option at left back. You've got Wijndal coming through, and he'd be another option, because Blind, yeah, he's more playing at centre back for Ajax now. I don't really like him playing at left back, but he seems to just be played there because you need to have him in the side. I don't think it's his natural position. I think it is a weak side for Netherlands as well as the right back position. But we shall see. We'll see what happens in September and see what happens with Jogi Löw. Does he pick him? Does he not? Then that would open a chance for Netherlands.
Finally, there is a question from Bo Ritkers, and he says, who do you think will be the strikers for the 2022 World Cup? For me, Mike, it's got to be Moran Boadu. You'd think after another couple of years of development, he will be first choice, and he's going to be a smashing striker.
Yeah, he's going to be an excellent prospect, and I think if you asked this question a couple of years ago, we'd be struggling to find names and we'd be a bit worried about the striker situation of the Netherlands. But by 2022, Netherlands might have some great prospects. You've got Joshua Zirkzee at Bayern Munich, you've got Boadu, you've got Donny Malen coming through, and I'm excited to see what he does for PSV. And then you've got some at Ajax coming through, such as Sontje Hansen and Brian Brobby. So yeah, we'll see how they develop over the next couple of years. But I think that the Netherlands strikers shortage is coming to an end, and in the next couple of years we'll see some very exciting young talents all battling for that one slot up front, and it's good to see.
Moving on then to more Eredivisie matters. One of the questions we had in fact, a few people asking this one, Donny Malen and Sam Lammers, when are they going to be back for PSV? Both were injured for long periods last season, and it meant that PSV struggled for goals and didn't get the wins they needed for a top 3 finish. So when do you think they'll be back, Mike? As far as I know, it's the start of the season, but will they be ready and raring to go by September?
Well, as far as I knew, Sam Lammers was back playing for PSV before the lockdown. He was fit again, and Donny Malen, according to reports yesterday, has got the all clear to return to training as soon as it starts up. So I think that both of them will be fit for the start of the season. They'll be playing for PSV when they kick off.
Obviously very positive for them. And one of the players they've been linked with is Alireza Jahanbakhsh. Not only PSV but Ajax were also interested in loaning the Brighton winger, who impressed for a few seasons with Ardel Alkmaar. A question from Salmon, I believe, who asked, are there any Dutch clubs interested in Jahanbakhsh? I guess my question to you, Mike, is the interest genuine? Because as far as I know, I don't know why PSV and Ajax would want to go and loan him. given his wage and how poorly he's been doing for Brighton. I know he's done well with RZ, but do you think that a club such as Ajax is going to take a punt on him?
I think that Ajax's interest is gone. I think they've got Mohamed Kudus now. I think he's the dynamic attacker they're looking for. And I think PSV is an option. I think if money's tight and they're looking at loan options, I don't see why Johan Bakash can't be a good one for them. They struggled with Bruma. I think they'll be trying to sell him this summer to raise some funds. And yeah, if they want an Eredivisie level winger, there isn't many out there that are as good as Johan Bakash. And if Brighton are willing to let him go on loan, then I don't see why PSV wouldn't go for him. And I think he's a good option. I don't think Feyenoord will. I think they've got Winston. They're happy with him. And I can't see him going back to AZ Alkmaar. So I think if you're looking at an Eredivisie club to move in from, it's going to be PSV or no one.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it happens, if PSV go in for him. It reminds me a little bit of when they loaned Brian Ruiz, who was a good player and had impressed for a long time with FC Twente at the top of the Eredivisie, but came back and just wasn't quite the same player. He scored a few goals, but just wasn't quite the same. And I hope it's not the same for Ali Reza, because I absolutely love watching him play for RZ. But after so long of not really playing for very much, I just don't know if his confidence is going to be completely shot, having not really been able to break through at Brighton, who I think he should have been able to. It's just a shame that he's played on the sort of right or left midfield rather than in a front three winger position. I think it really hinders what he can do on the football pitch. Sticking on transfer news, Donny van de Beek, he has long been rumoured with a move away, but it came out this week that Real Madrid no longer could afford a big signing this summer, and they were the club who were most interested in him. I guess the next question is it going to be Manchester United? Two questions on Twitter about him, wondering, is he going to be staying at Ajax for another season? Him and Andre Onana were rumoured to leave. Could they both stay?
I think the possibility of it happening is increasing. I think that Onana's really looking at Chelsea, and Chelsea are only going to look at him if they sell Kepa, and with Van de Beek, Real Madrid are out of it. That also impacts Manchester United in the case that if Real Madrid wanted Paul Pogba, they can't afford him now, so he's not going to go. And Man United are going to splash out 40 million for another midfielder when they've already got Bruno Fernandes, Pogba. I can't see it. So then you're looking at other possibilities with Newcastle, if this takeover ever goes through, try and sign him. That's a possibility. And there's Everton, if they're going to overhaul their squad and they've got quite a lot of money to spend this summer. Marcel Brands knows Van de Beek well. They become a possibility. But then it's up to Van de Beek. What does he want to do? Does he want to go stay at Ajax, play in the Champions League, be at a club where he's comfortable, or go play for, say, a Newcastle or Everton? He won't be playing in Europe next season. And if it goes wrong and he's benched by, say, Everton, like what happened with David Klaassen, then it could impact him going into Euros next summer. So I think that if Manchester United and Real Madrid interest doesn't come back, say, for instance, if Real Madrid somehow sells somebody for a lot of money, then they decide to go for Van de Beek, it's a possibility. But then I think the chances of him staying at Ajax keep increasing day in, day out right at the moment, but we shall see. It's still, the transfer window's not even open yet. The season in England's not even finished yet. So it's still got a long time to go. I'm sure there'll be plenty of rumours flying around in the next couple of months, and we just need to see.
It just raises questions that Ajax signed Mohamed Kudus. I think that's how you pronounce his name anyway. Kudus, Kudus. He seems like a very exciting prospect. 19 years of age, the Ghanaian attacking midfielder. Now, if he's been signed to play in the 10, is that more of a replacement for Hakim Ziyech, even though he played in the wing? Or is that a replacement for Donny van de Beek when he leaves?
Well, everyone in Dutch press seems to say that he'd be more suited to, say, replacing Van de Beek because of the way he plays. He plays in Denmark, he was like a false nine, dropping deep, picking up the ball, dribbling, finding spaces, pulling defenders around, which is kind of what Van de Beek does. So it seems like he's that sort of player. But, replacing Hakim Ziyech is basically impossible by Ajax. They've got Antony and they've got Kudus now, so we'll see which one of them comes into the side to replace him. But I think if you're Erik ten Hag and the option to keep Van de Beek, what happens, then he's going to be happy with the fact that he's now got a lot of options for each position. I'm sure you want to keep Onana, Tagliafico as well if the interest in them doesn't materialise in the next few months. I think if you look to the way that Kudus plays, I'd say he's been signed as a possible replacement for Van de Beek.
Do you not start to wonder, though, why Ajax are signing attacking midfielder after attacking midfielder? It's nice to have so many options in the 10 and on the wings, but there's question still remains about their striker and defensive midfield. They don't have many options in those two positions, and that's where they need to strengthen. So why are they signing so many attacking midfielders now?
It's just the Ajax way, isn't it? They still have attackers, but for the striker role, they've got Traore, they've got Robbie, they've got the likes of Promise who can play there, they've got Tadic who can play there. Try to get Robbie to sign a new contract. Is he going to sign a new contract if, say, they signed another striker, then they're like, look, you're now 6th in the pecking order. He's coming into, I think he's now 19. And he might end up deciding that he wants to move elsewhere. If Hunter's staying for another year, I just don't think they need another striker. I think that they've got the options to play there. And yeah, even on the wings, they're set. They've got Promise, they've got Neres, they've got Tadic who can play there. Then they've got Anthony who might be a winger. Then they've got Hansen. Yeah, the player that I feel quite sorry for is Camp. I just can't see him ever making his breakthrough every single time. It seems like he might get a chance. It seems like they're signing another midfielder that can play in his position. Yeah, I can see him, if they're going to start loaning out players like they've done with Kik Pieri, then why not send out Camp as well if he's not going to get a chance? Then you got other youngsters like Kenneth Taylor and Nats Univar knocking on the door as well. I mean, for Erik ten Hag, it's great. He's got so many attacking options, but it's going to come to a stage where these youngsters who have not signed new contracts yet are going to get annoyed by the fact that their path to the first team is getting blocked.
There's another question about transfer news here, Mike, and it's about the new signing for Sparta Rotterdam, Raider Karciuc. He scored 20 goals in 28 appearances for Telstar in the Dutch second division last season. He's 24 years old. It's been quite a quick rise for top for him. The question was from Lewis on Twitter. What do we think about him moving from Telstar to Sparta, and will he be a starter there? And can he make do with the step up to the Eredivisie at the age that he is? I think it's worth mentioning that Sparta have lost a lot of strikers over the past summer or of January as well. The lad they let go to Brentford and the striker who went to Eintracht Frankfurt. The two names are just escaping my mind for some reason. I'm sure you'll catch me up on them in just a second, Mike. They need some strikers. They've already signed Lennart T this summer on a free transfer from Pek Zwolle. And yeah, Karciuc, I think, is expected to be their starting striker, but they know they've got T as well. They often play with two strikers up front. I think it would be those two playing together. And I know that Sparta like to play that way, and I'm sure they'll get goals out of those two strikers.
Yeah, replacing Ragnar Ake is going to be a tough job. He's a great striker for them last season. It's going to be interesting to see how he steps up. Last year was his first year as a professional. We've seen strikers come up from the second division and do well. Vincent Janssen being the poster boy for that. Cyril Dessers as well. And then there's some that didn't do so well. Like Tom Boer, he came up from the second division. Everyone thought he was going to be the next Vincent Janssen, and it didn't really work out. So we'll see. He got a lot of goals last season in the second division, and we'll see if he can handle the step up, because I think Sparta Rotterdam they'll need goals next season. He could be the one to provide them. They've lost Ake, they've lost Joel Perreault, who was on one from PSV. Dervisoglu, who's now at Brentford. But yeah, I think they've signed two decent options. Ties, he's a good Eredivisie striker, and yeah, I'm excited to see what Karciuc can bring.
And a question from @S_VDH. He wants an update on Ferdi Kadioglu. What's the latest with him? He started to impress in Turkey, didn't he, Mike? Yeah,
he started to get more starting appearances. He started to really impress. Fenerbahce fans really like him. He's basically one of the key players now. He's not really got a chance over the past 2 years, but he's now looks like he's now a permanent part of their side. He scored a couple of goals last week. He's now got 4 goals and 3 assists this season. And yeah, he seems to be finally showcasing his talent over there. I know Fenerbahce aren't having a good season, and we'll see how he does next year. He's still only 20, Netherlands under 21 international. Whenever I've tweeted out about Kadioglu, I always get a lot of Fenerbahce fans saying that he's going to get called up to Turkey and that's what he wants now, but we'll see what happens with that. And if when the internationals come around in September, if there's Netherlands under 21s games, I'm sure he'd be part of that squad, and then we need to see if he wants the future with the Dutch national team. The number 10 position, you're looking at the future, you're looking at Ihataren, who's, for me, a top prospect and a much brighter youngster than Kadioglu. So but it's good to have options. So Kadioglu could be back up to that in the future. So it's one that I wouldn't want Netherlands to lose out on. But he's not necessarily one that Koeman's going to call up in September because he's not that level yet.
No, he's not. He has to keep impressing in Turkey and being one of the best players in that country, I think, if he's going to break into Alanya and even be an option. Just because of the amount of attacking midfielders and wingers that they've got, who are full of pace and trickery. Don't know where Kadioglu fits in there. The rest of our questions are kind of curveball questions and make for some interesting conversation, Mike. The first one being from Kel L. Who are the top 5 breakout stars to look out for who that aren't in the top 3 Eredivisie clubs? That's not including Ajax PSV in final. Of course, AZ did finish second last season. So I'm going to assume that AZ aren't in what you were asking there, KL. And I know that AZ have got lots and lots of brilliant youngsters coming through. One who I keep raving about, Motabuni, a great winger. He's going to be really important next season because Idrissi is leaving the club. And we could be seeing Tabuni taking over either as an option off the bench or as a starter. Kalmine as well at RZ is a good box-to-box midfielder. I think we just want to see a bit more from him in terms of attacking contribution and being important defensively if he's going to play a bit deeper. So there's 2 players from RZ. It's really hard being put on the spot like that, Mike. I usually prepare answers to the questions, but this one I didn't, just because there's so many throughout the league. I'm sure that once you start talking, I'll go, oh yeah, him.
Yeah, I've put on a few. At AZ, Thijs Soesting has been promoted to the first team next season as well. He's a midfielder. For Heerenveen, I've got Arjen van der Heijden. He seems to be around for a while, and he was on the bench a lot last season. Exciting winger. I want to see him finally come into it. I know he's got Van Bergen and Adjuke ahead of him. If one of them leaves, then he might be the choice. FC20, I think, are going to be an interesting club to watch next season with the players that they're signing. A couple of Dutch youngsters on loan, Kiek Pierre from Ajax, the centre-back, and Nathan Markello from Everton, who's another defender. I'll be interested to see how they do. Thomas Boytink, I think it's finally going to be his year to impress with Vitesse up front. At Groningen, a lot of youngsters coming through. You got Postema, you got the Van Kam brothers, Daniel and Joe, and Keane Slower, the winger. I think that, yeah, you're going to have Arjen Robben there, but I think you're going to have quite a few exciting youngsters as well, so they'll be ones to keep an eye out. One that I'm very intrigued by is Willem II, Rick Zuiderwijk, who's a midfielder who is linked with Barcelona in January. He's made his debut last year, but I think he's going to be more of a starter next season, so I want to see how good he is and see if he is worthy of that interest from Barcelona, because he could be another exciting talent. Obviously, Frankie de Jong came from Willem II, so he could be the next one like that. And then, yeah, that's the ones I've got so far, but I'm sure later in the summer on the Football-Oranje website we'll have a big list of the youngsters to watch, and then we'll see some more coming through in pre-season as well, because I'm sure clubs like Heerenveen, VVV, Twente might not be able to sign a lot of players this summer, so they'll be relying on some youth prospects, and a few I'm sure will fall under the radar until the season starts.
Some good names there, Mike, and I was listening to that going, yes, of course, them. You are right, there's a massive list on our website that both of us, mainly Mike, of course, put together full of Eredivisie talents that you can watch next season in the Dutch league. So please do have a look at that if you haven't already. Also on our YouTube channel, we've got lots of videos about young players that are coming through in the league. So feel free to check those out too. Van der Heide is an interesting one. I'm in contact with someone who works at FC Heerenveen, and he always raves about Van der Heide and says about how good he is. So I wonder if he'll make lots of appearances next season. As you said, if one of Ajuke or Van Berken leave, I think Van Berken's going to be leaving the club. Ajuke will stay another season. And Heerenveen always bring through young players, just people you haven't heard of before or weren't aware of. As for Zuiderwijk at Willem II, I hope he doesn't listen to our podcast, because I think didn't he come out in the media saying that he was sick of comparisons to Frenkie de Jong?
Yeah, there's another one then. But yeah, he did. But it's inevitable if he's a midfielder that comes through at Willem II and gets linked to Barcelona, then the links are obvious. And yeah, he's probably a different player, and we'll see next season if he's the same sort of level, because it could be another exciting player for Willem II, who have already got so many youngsters that are impressed this season, such as India, Shimi, Nunley and Pavlidis.
Having a flick through the questions we've got left in our podcast. Thanks for the comment, Michael. He says, great news, looking forward to the podcast. Sorry, it's been a while since we did our last one, Michael. And we have a question from Andrew. Just going to bring it up. There it is. With more and more US youth players going to German teams, do you believe that Dutch teams will increase their scouting of American players? Andrew, I assume you've got an interest in American youth players, and you may already be aware of Chris Costa at PSV and Ledesma at PSV as well. Two very good players are coming through who are just about hitting 20, I believe, in terms of their age. So I'm sure that a first team debut is coming very soon for those guys. There's another guy at Ajax, isn't there, Mike, who's American too? And I'm sure that many...
Alex Mendez plays for Ajax as well. He's an American youngster.
I know that lots of people listen to this podcast are from the USA. And yeah, there are often players that head to Europe because they know how good the youth teams are. And if you've got players such as Gloucester who rave about how good the Netherlands is to develop, then you're going to see a lot more coming through soon. I think it's inevitable that also lots go to Germany just because it's a big country, it's a stronger leagues as well. Yeah, I think you'll see more coming to the Netherlands in future based on what other players are aware of.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that Ajax and PSV at the moment seem to be really interested in the South American market. That seems to be where they're scouting a lot of. Mexico as well. So there's no doubt that they'll also have their eyes on the American youth system and trying to get some more of them, because yeah, there's a few in the Eredivisie right now, and I think Ledesma, I think we'll see him a lot more for PSV next season. I think he'll make his debut. He's really good for young PSV last season, so I think he'll be the next American to make a breakthrough into the Eredivisie.
A question from Cam was asking about the Ajax stock. If a billionaire puts some stock into Ajax, then will the club get some money from that? Well, yeah, I'd assume so. I don't think either of us are aware of how the stock works. If you buy some for a club, one would assume that if an investor purchases lots of stock, yeah, they would certainly benefit from that. A question we'll finish with from Wissam. We talked about Kik Piri earlier joining FC Twente. I think just on him first, I can't believe that he's agreed to be loaned out to an Eredivisie club, given that had he not left FC Heerenveen, he was the captain of that club, playing at centre-back every single week, and now he's ended up spending a year in the Dutch second division to then go back out on loan to a mid-table Eredivisie club. It was a strange choice for him, and now I think you can see that he's lost a season in his development. He needs to play every week for Twente this season. That is a certainty. But Wissam's question was just asking what the expectations are for Twente next season. And for me, they've got to be a mid-table team that's pushing for the Europa playoff spots, given how rich the club are and how much they are likely to invest in their squad this summer. They lost a lot of players, a lot of their first team players this summer. A lot of them left for free, so they've got some rebuilding to do. But I fully expect that they will be mid-table this season. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, as I said, I'm excited to see what happens with FC20 this summer, because they've brought in Pierre and they've brought in Markel, but they're also getting linked with a lot of players that used to play for them. So Elia, he seems to be on his way back to the Netherlands. He keeps coming out saying that he's in talks with Dutch clubs, and one of the ones he said that he'd be open to going back to is FC20. Then you got Brian Ruiz, who got mentioned earlier on, saying that he would like to play for FC20 again. And they've also been linked to Ola John. He's a blast from the past. He's playing in Portugal at the moment. So yeah, I think they're in for a interesting summer. I like to see who they sign. I think that they lost their way a bit last season. I think some of the signings they made were not very good, and the manager, I don't think he was great. Garcia, he's gone now, and you got Ron Jans in charge. I think he's a good option for them. I think that they're going to rebuild this summer. I think a lot of their foreign players have left. Had a lot of Spaniards, Aitor, and he's went to Olympiacos. So yeah, I'm excited to see who they bring in this summer, who they loan. Got some exciting youngsters coming through. I really like Gottfried Romer Atto at the midfielder. I want to see more of him next season. Wyndon Salahi, he's getting linked to a lot of clubs as well. So yeah, I think they're going to be mid-table to 9th, 8th sort of position next year, then they can build from there.
I think sometimes that Dutch football fans, especially if you're from the Netherlands, look down upon FC Twente and sometimes laugh at their misfortune. From my point of view, it's great to see such a big club succeeding again in the league. It's been great to talk to you, Mike, and I know that there's plenty more to come from us now. It's the start of a new season. It's got that feeling about it. A lot of clubs are turning to training in the last couple of weeks, and lots of signings are starting to happen too. It's later than usual, but there's also a long time to go until the Eredivisie season actually kicks off, sort of a month after, isn't it? So there's going to be lots more coming from us on our website and all our platforms, to stay tuned for that. And I'm sure we'll do another podcast soon as well. Thanks everybody for listening, and yeah, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening. Bye for now.
Daar is hij. Ja, ja! Daar is Klaassen. Goal!